Skinny for Friday, August 28th. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined by my colleague Ray Roa, editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing. Hey, Ray, lots happening right now.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks to the Down Dirty for having me on, and sorry to the WMNF listeners who have to listen to this voice for 2 hours.
Oh, no, we love it. Hey, so right now, a lot of things going on. All eyes on Kennedy Boulevard in downtown Tampa right now, where the Hillsborough County Commissioners are, within minutes, it looks like they're going to vote on whether or not to agree to the deal for a new baseball stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays that will cost the county $796 million. So we're monitoring that. We're going to
Ken Hagan is on there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is his moment right here.
This is his moment. But we're going. I'm sure all the other county commissioners will have their say before announcing their vote. And I really do think it is up in the air right now because two county commissioners who voted originally for this MOU a few months ago have said in recent weeks that they're all of a sudden reconsidering how to approve this or not. And frankly, they're both Republicans we're talking about here, and this would be a big deal for them to approve all this county taxpayer money. So I don't know. We won't predict it. We'll just watch it. Okay, so later in the show here, we're going to discuss what's happening in Clearwater right now, specifically the issue regarding the city of Clearwater vacating part of a street to give to the Church of Scientology for a proposed big, massive building there. Brooks Gibbs, he's the campaign director of the group Save the Garden. He's in studio. We're going to get to that issue shortly. They're trying to get enough petitions to have the city commission revisit vacating a block of land there to the Church of Scientology. But first, as somebody who covers state government, we've got to talk about what happened this week with the big revelation of the details of that Hope Florida Foundation grand jury report, which has been kept secret for 7-8 months now. But this week, CBS Miami reporter Jim DeFede reported that the state grand jury found that the DeSantis administration had, quote, misappropriated, unquote, taxpayer money when they diverted $10 million from a Medicaid settlement into the Hope Florida Foundation, arguing the transfer was, quote, part of a sophisticated scheme to fund political activities. So joining us right now to talk about this for a few minutes is Michael Barfield. He's an investigative reporter with the Florida Trident, which was the first media organization way back in February to report there was actually a grand jury report or a presentment. And his organization had sued in Leon County Court to legally demand and argue for the release of that sealed report. Michael Barfield, welcome to the Skinny.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hey, great to have you here with us, Michael. Thank you so much. So I think for our listeners and folks who've been reading the news the last couple of days, what we learned in the report, the broad outlines are not necessarily revelatory. It basically tells us what we've already known, the basic narrative here, which is that there were state actors who moved money, which was supposed to provide health insurance for poor children. It was moved through multiple organizations before landing in the bank accounts of two political committees in the Republican Party of Florida. Those funds were then used in 2024 to defeat Amendment 3, the citizen initiative to legalize recreational weed in Florida. But we got a few more specifics in the report. I just want to get your first thoughts about seeing what we've learned this past week on that.
Well, I think it was worse than what we anticipated. Yes, we did know a lot of the details about the underlying diversion of money. That was well reported by some of my colleagues at the Times and the Miami Herald. But what I think was new was that a lot of memories were faded when it came to testimony before the grand jury. No one, for example, could remember exactly how and who was responsible for orchestrating the scheme. And most notably, the people that could answer that question, James Uthmeyer, our appointed Attorney General, and Ashley Moody, the former Attorney General, who's now appointed as U.S. Senator, were not called to the grand jury. And so that's a gap for sure. And now, though, we also know that 7 months has elapsed, during which time that there were efforts, ongoing efforts, as I understand them, to keep this repressed and keep it from the public ever seeing it and finding out what its government was up to.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Ashley Moody here. Let's talk about that for a minute. According to the grand jury report, Ashley Moody's chief deputy at the Attorney General's office, John Gard, said he had, quote, reservations about the deal and that he, quote, esoterically, he agreed that $10 million was taxpayer money and belonged to the state of Florida. And during his testimony in front of the grand jury, he explained that Florida statutes require the legislature to decide how money is spent. He was concerned about the political consequences if the legislature ever found out about the diversion. And Ashley Moody then came out with a statement yesterday. She mentioned 3 points. The third point was very interesting. She wrote the AG's office had no knowledge of how funds would be spent or played any role in how Hope Florida, ACA, which is the agency, the Florida Healthcare Agency, or the legislature would spend the settlement money. Attempts to characterize this as any other way are disingenuous. And I think a lot of people read that comment and said, well, okay, fine. What do you think about this? And certainly, believe me, I saw Ashley Moody last Thursday night in Tampa. Actually, we didn't talk about this, get the chance to, but obviously, she's not been the most forthright in talking to the press in recent, since she's been on the campaign trail. But it seems to me she really, that's a question she has got to answer here about that because, I think she had previously said she had no knowledge of how these funds would be spent. The question is, now that you're aware, are you okay with this or not? What do you make, Michael Barfield, about some of the comments? So Ron DeSantis yesterday, he talked about this. He was outraged by it all. James Uthmeyer is particularly really getting frisky about all this. He said this shows basically this is all a hoax, and all it did was show the Democrats can't win on policy, they can't win on the law, so they try to lie and smear and try to break the law. What are your responses to DeSantis and Uthmeyer's responses yesterday?
Well, sure. But first, let me say for Ashley Moody, Senator Moody, it's not an excuse to deliberately stick your head in the sand at the time and not ask where that money was going. We're not talking about $10. We're talking about $10 million. So I don't think that's a good excuse to say, well, I didn't know where it was going. That's your job to ask. Second, as it relates to the governor and the appointed attorney general, well, it's really so over the top. I don't even know how to respond to it other than to say that it's a deflection from their own behavior and the report that came out that they've been trying to block for 7 months. And finally, the chickens have come home to roost. And their only defense now is that, it was a crime that it was leaked, rather than address their behavior. It's a classic deflection. Don't want to talk about that. Actually mischaracterize the grand jury's report to say that this was a donation that a private entity made to a nonprofit. That's not true. The grand jury explicitly rejected that in the report that we have. So for the governor and for the attorney general to lie, flat out lie to citizens of the state of Florida is just unheard of.
Yeah, we're talking to Michael Barfield, investigative reporter with the Florida Trident, about the Hope Florida Foundation report, which Michael's organization has been desperately trying, first publication to let us know this is actually happening, and had sued to try to get it released.
And it was a Republican that actually almost initiated this investigation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely Alex Andrade and the Florida House of Representatives last year in committee in 2025 were very aggressive in trying to get more information about it. And Rick Scott, we should say, yesterday came out and was concerned, expressed concern about it, and it was sounded a little outraged about the whole thing. So it's not like everybody in the Republican Party is following these guidelines on saying that there's nothing to see here. I guess the last thing I want to ask you about, Michael, was, we still, this report is not out, right? Jim DeFede of CBS Miami got obviously access to it and reported on it, but the report itself, nobody else is able to see that right now at this point.
Well, the efforts to block it is what we really want to see, and we have motions that were pending in court. They were granted by the court, allowing us to intervene, and we're going to be filing a motion, additional motion on Monday to seek further clarification, because the judge has granted 2 motions, and yet we're still in this blockade method by, we suspect, the very people who are now calling it a hoax. And so we'll continue those efforts, because we think that citizens in this state have long enjoyed transparency, and no matter who's in that office, this is something that taxpayers and citizens want to know about and are entitled to know about. It's a constitutional right in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Barfield is an investigative reporter with the Florida Trident. Great work on this, Michael. Thank you so much for your time here joining us on The Skinny.
Thank you, Mitch.
All right. Ray, so this report, the thing is, it's like, I don't know if you heard DeSantis or Uthmeyer talk about this yesterday.
Yes.
And Uthmeyer basically challenged a reporter saying he could be breaking the law, even asking about this. They're very arrogant in how they're responding because, yes, but they got, at least seemingly they got away with it. Nobody's getting charged with anything. And yet, reading the CBS Miami story, the grand jury, they could not, feel like they didn't know who to actually attribute, who's at fault here. But this thing says that this was illegal, basically, that this was a diversion of taxpayer money, not a donation, as Ron DeSantis said, from Centene, this Medicaid company, to the state of Florida. This money they owed us, every taxpayer here, $67 million, and this $10 million diversion. And, it's fodder for the Democrats, but whether anything else emanates out of this.
I mean, it kind of confirms how serious everybody thought this was. I mean, remember at one point we were talking about whether or not Casey DeSantis would be a nominee for the Republican Party for governor, and she very quickly just disappeared. Nobody was talking about her, and that kind of made you think, hey, this Hope Florida thing could really be very, very serious. I mean, what you're talking about is $10 million that was supposed to go to sick children got split between two political action committees to fight two amendments on behalf of the governor's interests and things. That is like really, really serious. It's an interesting time for it. I was almost going to ask you, Mitch, if the governor had changed his press availability or anything like that, but he is not the kind to shy away from this. In fact, I almost could see him even chomping at the bit to be faced with reporters. Have you seen him since this news?
We haven't seen him. He was in Tampa this week. He was in Tampa. I actually saw him and asked him a question on Monday, I believe it was.
He
was
feeding
in Tampa
Bay, I think.
Feeding Tampa Bay, which is by the way, that was kind of a weird press conference. If I could just say that for a moment before we get to.
Why is that? What was it at the big warehouse there?
The new big warehouse for Feeding Tampa Bay, which is of course this great organization that helps out all so many counties in our area.
Kind of like a clearinghouse. There's so many people on the ground collecting food.
So
and things like
I thought, I didn't know there's going to be something about providing more food to people or something like that. No, it was about cracking down on EBT and about benefits. Basically, they're the first state that's working with the Trump administration. Now, some of the stuff they talk about, I don't think people can already get with their SNAP benefits or what have you, or tobacco. Talking about like drugs. No, you can't get that anyway. I'm not really sure, but that's why they used Feeding Tampa Bay as the event to hold a presser, was to talk about we're cracking down harder on people using their benefits here. Anyway, we need to move on here. If you're just turning in, it's 11:19. We're going to switch now.
And they still haven't voted at the Hillsborough County Board of County
keep us informed about that.
Okay,
about the big baseball stadium vote. Okay, we're going to talk about what's going on in Clearwater right now, which most of our listeners should know that, if you don't, that Clearwater, of course, has been the literal international spiritual headquarters of the Church of Scientology since the 1970s, and has a presence in downtown Clearwater for decades. And then back was in 2019, the Tampa Bay Times had a blockbuster story by Tracy McManus that reported that essentially at that point, Scientology or parishioners had controlled 185 properties that covered 101 acres of downtown Clearwater. So this has been an issue, of course, because as people try to make Clearwater more dynamic downtown, they've got to negotiate with the church about those properties, and a lot has not happened there. That's why some people say Clearwater is not nearly as dynamic as it should be. Okay, but now let's fast forward to what's been going on the last year or so. In March of 25, the city gave initial proposal for Scientology to take over a portion of South Garden Avenue for an event hall, and then they were going to charge them approximately $1.4 million. Then things got really crazy, and that's what we're going to get into right now with our guest. So joining us right now is Brooks Gibbs. He is the campaign director for the group Save the Garden. Brooks, thank you so much for joining us here in studio at WMNF.
Thanks for having me.
So you're with the group Save the Garden. What is Save the Garden all about?
Save the Garden exists to preserve Garden Avenue as a street for the public. It's a public street. It comes off Court Street, which is a state road. It provides great relief from beach traffic when you go to America's best beach, but you want to go downtown. It's also a throughway to our downtown. So the mayor, Lena Teixeira, who is also a council member, those are two that voted against the vacation.
Mayor Bruce Rector is, yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Rector was very adamant about if we want a bright future for downtown, we need to keep ability for people to get there. And so that's really what Save the Garden exists. Let's save the garden. It also has a second point. The first time they vacated it in the first reading, you got to do it 2 readings and then it's done. Because it's in the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Area, by law, they have to get, number 1, market value, and number 2, open it up for alternative bids. Save the Garden was there to offer $1.5 million more money. We were going to keep it a street, and we were going to install a memorial to the African American community known as The Garden that lived, worked, played up and down Garden Avenue, and we were in partnership with the African American Foundation in Clearwater. And so when we offered our proposal, which we believe was superior, that's when the Church of Scientology withdrew their request to vacate South Garden Avenue and basically took their ball and went home and said, you know what, we actually think we own the land underneath the road, so we don't have to go through this bidding process. We'll return to this in a year's time, and they did.
That's right. And the vote was in June. It was 3-2 vote, like you said. And now, right now, you guys are collecting signatures. I think trying to collect 7,000 signatures, roughly, from people in the city of Clearwater by September 16th to have this go before the voters in a referendum. What are you trying to get happen at this point?
Yeah, so the second time the Church of Scientology applied to vacate the road, they did it with the argument that it doesn't have to go through the CRA process. So just vacate it. It's like an easement, they basically argued, and just let us have our land back. And so 3-2 vote, June 18th, the land became theirs. And so now, unfortunately, the ordinance was passed to give Garden Avenue without any money, without any fee, to the Church of Scientology. The cool thing about our charter is that we can do what's called an ordinance referendum. If the citizens don't like an ordinance, they can collect 7,000 signatures from voters, and we got 90 days to do that. And this weekend, we will reach the 7,000 mark. So we have accomplished our goal to basically force the council to reconsider, and if they refuse, it goes to a special election.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. How close are you now to getting those signatures?
Well, we're over it. So,
you're over?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. We have over 7,000 valid signatures.
Yeah, I was going to say, how worried are you about the validation of those nowadays?
Well, this time we're doing a pre-audit. So, we're not confident that the clerk has the ability to count. So we're asking the supervisor of elections to do it. Last time we did something like this, she got so many things wrong. And so we're going what's called over the top. We're going to hand her over 10,000 signatures. We're
talking with Brooks Gibbs. He is the campaign director of the group Save the Garden in Clearwater. And I want to open up the phones in a moment here. People want to participate in this conversation we're having right now, 813-239-9663. I've got to make sure to fix our computer here so I can actually see these calls coming through here. But anyway, let's continue to discuss this. Okay, so this is controversial because this is the Church of Scientology, okay? And so let's see. I watched some of the video of like some of these meetings here, and it's gotten very intense here. And let's talk about so what happening here. Now, you mentioned this, Brooks, a moment ago. So initially it was about 1.4. They were going to pay for it, right? The Church of Scientology was, and then when you guys came up with an alternative bid, then they said no, we own the land. There's been some controversy about that. Then all of a sudden, a man by the name of James Uthmeyer, who we were just mentioning a moment ago in this whole Florida situation, got involved here. And I believe it's because City Council member David Albritton asked for his advice on this. Can you inform us about that?
Sure. So I guess I'm new to politics, but apparently if you give money to a politician, you can ask for favors later on down the road. And so Uthmeyer received, $1.8 million in 2025 from Trish Dugan, who's a billionaire Scientologist. And so, interestingly, David Albritton was told, and he actually confessed this, that he was encouraged by the Church of Scientology to reach out to Uthmeyer to weigh in on his opinion of who owns the land underneath the road so that, they could claim ownership and title to it. And so that's exactly what Albritton did. And Uthmeyer, surprisingly, fired back a whole memorandum very quickly saying, you know what, in our opinion, they do own the right. And if you would withhold the right, then that would be considered discrimination. So there was this power pressure. Yeah. And so, all Scientologists are Republican. And so they give to the tune of millions of dollars, even to our Pinellas GOP, millions of dollars, but also on the state level and federal level. And they have really done a phenomenal job of influencing our politicians. So it makes it very difficult to have rational decisions made for the good of the citizens of Clearwater when you've got power brokers on the outside getting favors done for them.
Again, we're speaking with Brooks Gibbs. He's the campaign director of the group Save the Garden. If you're listening to this, this is The Skinny here in WMNF 88.5 FM. Mitch Perry along with Ray Roa. So David Albritton, now I saw, again, some of the back and forth over the last few months, I guess it was, has been, Albritton has warned people who signed your petition that signing a petition is to run developers out of Clearwater. He's been... And I've interviewed David Albritton a couple years ago, and he was running when I was at Bay News 9. Seemingly a pretty solid guy, but he's made some. It's gotten pretty intense, kind of visceral here, along with some of the other council members here. Ryan Cotton, I believe, is one of the other members there who said some very disparaging things about your organization, which I suppose again is. I know, Brooks, you say you're not ever been politically involved here, but certainly the church, once you get involved with this stuff, it does seem to it gets intense here. So, I mean, I think he's disparaged your group, right? Says your guys are just like, well, I don't know what he said exactly.
Yeah, so he's, David Albritton has said that we are a hate group, that we are a bunch of bigots. We've never said anything but facts related to David Albritton, Ryan Cotton, Mike Mignogno. We try to stick with the facts. We don't judge people. We try to live by the golden rule, do unto others. And the saddest part for me is we have these elected officials that don't even take time to read our petition. We're not trying to run developers out of Clearwater. We're trying to make voter approval required for future development. And he would say, well, that's going to practically run developers out. And it says, no, it's not. The only developer within the core downtown is the Church of Scientology. And when you have voter approval required for any street vacations that Scientology wants, that creates such phenomenal power to the people. And it forces Scientology to improve their reputation so when they need something from the public will say yes. This is the exact type of effort we need to empower the people to have a seat at the table for the future development of downtown Clearwater so that Scientology could have a balance of accountability. Keep your buildings activated, keep them open, let's make it vibrant, and stop keeping blight the basic story of downtown. Going back to this whole issue of bringing in James Uthmeyer, so I believe that David Albritton sent... so he's the one who sent the letter to Uthmeyer to ask for his opinion. Now, he did this without consulting the city council or Clearwater's then city attorney, who had already published a 30-page memorandum at the council's request outlining why the city, not the church, owned the street. By the way, the Wall Street Journal had a big story about this whole issue back in June. They reported in an interview with David Albritton that he said, yes, the church had asked him to involve Uthmeyer in the street dispute. Scientology representatives had requested a meeting with him in November to ask how he planned to vote to David Albritton, how he planned to vote when they resubmitted their application for the street. Albritton said the meeting at the church's Clearwater headquarters included David Miscavige, the church's top leader. But definitely the top leadership of Scientology is very much involved in this fight right now, which maybe to them is over, right? Because the vacating of the block. Garden Avenue, how much... how long are we talking about? How much distance here? It's 0.63 acres. It's 100 feet long. It's wide, and it goes between Court and Franklin. 0.63 acres is a legit amount of space. In fact, it is, like I said, a great throughway, even though they claim it's not. The tragedy of what David Albritton did was that it actually caused our amazing city attorney, David Margolis, to resign. I guess, attorneys have egos. This is something else I learned. And so when when he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into a 30-page memorandum making a logical proof and legal proof that the city actually owns title to the land underneath the road and they cannot legally give it away. And if they do give it away, it'll be a violation called ultra vires, which means overarching your authority levels, overreaching. Unfortunately, David, on principle, Margolis, our city attorney, resigned. And now we have a new city attorney that basically says, I agree with Uthmeyer, it's not worth the fight. So this has been a real heartbreak. And I just wish two things. Number one, David Albritton would stay awake during the meetings because he's always sleeping. If you actually watch it, his eyes are closed pretty much the whole time. And number two, he would actually care about the details and get into the nitty gritty. And maybe a third thing, he would actually meet with us. You're supposed to meet with your constituents. Let me ask you, if you knew that's over 7,000, close to, by the time we deliver it, 10,000 signatures, the largest citizen initiative in the history of Clearwater, period. There was this movement happening. And now, not only are you giving away Garden Avenue, you're giving away Laura Street, you're giving away Grove Street,
right,
all
we'll
these
get to that in a
streets in Church of
moment.
Scientology. Wouldn't you take time to meet with the leaders and to actually read the petition? You think you would know about it, but he has been apathetic and frankly hiding.
Yeah, again, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM, 11:32 in the morning here. Mitch Perry along with Ray Rowe. We're talking with Brooks Gibbs. He's the campaign director of the group Save the Garden, talking about this whole issue about a piece of land in downtown Clearwater that the city basically gave away for nothing to the Church of Scientology for their, and this is this is all part of a big project that's going to. It's about L. Ron Hubbard, right?
They're going to keep it a street, but make it a private valet right in front of their hall, which is going to seat 4,000, called L. Ron Hubbard Hall. And across their little valet, which is currently Garden Avenue, they're going to have their big tribute to L. Ron Hubbard. So it's their mecca. You know, they say all is fair in love and war.
Auditorium, a plaza on the property there, right? Is that what they want to build?
I mean, $150 million, spare no expense. You know how Scientology rolls, and it's all for themselves. It will be closed off to the public. It is not a public benefit. If you go to your little YouTube app and you Google in creepiest town in America, Clearwater downtown shows up because that is the fruit of this institution.
How long have you been a long-time Clearwater resident? Or?
I've only been there 9 years, coming on 10 years.
Yeah, I just asked this because, like I said, the church has been there for decades, and I do know this is an issue. I covered Clearwater municipal elections in 2020 and to some extent 2022, both for Bay News 9, and it was actually more discussed more than ever. But I think previously it was kind of like, low key. People want to make an issue of it. That Times article in 2019 was a pretty big deal because nobody realized how much property the church or people associated with the church controlled there and not doing anything with it, right? Basically keeping it stagnant, and so really harming the interests of the city going forward. Clearwater is like our third major city in the Tampa Bay area. We've got Tampa, St. Petersburg, we've got Clearwater, and a lot of people tell you that Safety Harbor, Dunedin have much more dynamic downtown areas than Clearwater does. And, one of the factors is the fact that I know the city has tried to work with previous city attorneys and the like, and city managers work with the church to try to, get more cooperation going on here. I would love for more people to weigh in on this because this is always an interesting topic. Again, you can send us an email at dj@wmnf.org or call us at 813-239-9663. Anthony's back there taking your phone calls. One more thing, and we'll go to a call here. I wanted to talk about... so this also... and I talked about covering these elections. So we did have... Now, Mark Bunker is Mark Bunker. He is still alive in a runoff. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mark Bunker was was on the city commission for a term. He lost a re-election in 2020, right? And he is a noted critic of Church of Scientology. And then we had another person, Aaron Smith-Levin, I believe it was, right, in 2022, who ran. He did not win, but he was also another critic, because I know that I did reporting about his campaign back then. So, it's been more discussed now because more people are running for office on a platform of, opposing some of the things that are going on with the downtown area there. So we want to get to that. And also what happened in this most recent election just a few weeks ago, because it kind of became an issue in the race between Bianca Latvala and Jared Leone. But anyway, let's go to a call here. We've got Rufus on the phone here. Rufus, you're on WMNF.
Thank you much. Just a quick comment about the Scientologists. If you've been in Tampa for a while, you may remember about 30 years ago, I don't know if it was actually a murder trial or wrongful death involving a girl named, I think,
Lisa McPherson, yes. Yeah.
And at that time, a friend of mine who's now deceased was part of the legal team that was representing the family of Lisa. And after it was all done, he made a comment to me that stuck with me that was pretty funny, and this is coming from an attorney. He said there's 3 different groups that he ain't fooling with: the IRS, the Florida Bar, and the Scientologists, because he learned a lot in that trial that pretty much shook him, because they're one hell of a group, and I appreciate everybody that can stand up and, speak truth to power, and they are what they are, and thanks for what y'all guys do.
All right. Thank you for the phone call, Rufus.
It's a really good point, is that when people warned us, are you sure you want to take on the Church of Scientology? They will try to ruin you, and it's been 100% absolutely true. I've been working in schools for 26 years. Never before in the history of my career have I had my clients, which are school principals and superintendents, called and emailed saying, beware of Brooks Gibbs. Never in my life.
What are they saying about you?
They put on websites. They put on these websites that are like I'm a financial fraud. My PhD is in social psychology. So, I ruin kids' minds, with my resilience training and my curriculum. And they fabricate lies. And then they create review sites where they have, we assume, Sea Org members or something like that say, yeah, my son was counseled by Brooks, or so-and-so was, went through his curriculum and it just destroyed his life. And so you've got this, it's called fair game. They say it doesn't exist, but it absolutely does. Our volunteers are filmed daily. We have people walking up to us with their cell phones. They drill them and try to fatigue them with questions. I mean, we knew we were up against this. Maybe they're not as bad as they were in the 80s, or, props to Gabe Cazares back in 75 when there was a hit and run and fake affairs that they threw on him. But there's still very much, as he called it, a paramilitary terrorist organization. They operate in the world of terror, and they want you to feel too afraid to challenge them. And you know what? We don't have fear. We don't have fear. I've cured myself of my approval addiction, and we're taking this head on.
Well, talk about that real quick, because, there is an element of people like, I just want to be liked, or like, but it is scary to go up against the Church of Scientology. Like, has there been? You say you don't have any fear, but that's borderline stalking. I don't want to cross a legal line here, but
no. It's worse than that, because it actually creates objective harm. So I haven't shared this publicly, but I was asked to be a senior pastor of a church down the street on McMullen Avenue. I was hired by the hiring committee, and the day of the vote, or the weekend of the vote, the congregation members were inundated with phone calls and emails from. We can only assume members of the Church of Scientology, because they were pointing to the websites that the Church of Scientology launched, and I didn't make the vote, so it actually kept me from being, having work. By the way, I was totally fine with that. My kids said, "Don't pastor that church, anyways. They're weird." But the point is, when I know my wife invited me into this fight, and so if she's got my back, it's like, sweet. My kids admire us and all the work and accomplishments we have. I have an independent living that I make that cannot be leveraged over me. And so when you remove yourself of those ties that can be, or the foundation that could be taken from under you, it loosens the fear.
Something in the newsroom we talk about, we don't write about people's kids, right? Like, we don't care how it's just a rule. Do you find that's the case with the church in the way that this works for you? Like, how does this affect your family? Normally, I wouldn't ask this kind of question, but I am really curious about that.
From everything I learned about Scientology, they don't view children as children. They view them as basically young human bodies with a really old, trillions of years old thetan. I don't want to get into their whatever they would call it. It's not theology; it's something else. But they don't view children the same way that we do. So no, I think all is fair in love and war. They look at this Garden Avenue as an absolute must-have. This is Project Normandy with a bow on it. This is for L. Ron Hubbard. If they don't get this, they will fail all of their members. And that's why the citizens of Clearwater realized, no, it's actually a David against a giant. And if we can preserve this road, it represents so much more than a road. It represents balance back to the power structures of the politics in downtown Clearwater.
And again, we're talking about one vote, right? I mean, this didn't have to happen if the city commission, voted, 3-2 the other way, basically, back in June here. I want to bring something else up here. Again, we're talking to Brooks Gibbs from Save the Garden in Clearwater. Well, actually, let's go this caller first, and then we'll come back to this next topic here. Let's see. We've got Mike from Clearwater. Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much, sir, for doing what you're doing, and I support it 100%. I've been in Clearwater as my junior prom was at the old Fort Harrison Hotel before the Scientologists took over. So I've seen the Clearwater Sun, which used to be our afternoon paper, be taken over and put out of business by them. They are a terrorist organization. I have a boat down there at a boat slip at the Clearwater boat slip right there, and I drive by there all the time down Garden Street and pay the city quite a bit of money to maintain that boat slip, and there used to be a guy out there with a Scientology hat on, and he was doing tours because people would come to town with curiosity about this. Where'd this guy go? He got disappeared, I think. He's gone. I mean, you're in for a fight, but please let us know how we can support you, a website or something like that. I'm all behind you. I'm a Clearwater resident for years. Thank you.
Well, since you asked, savethegarden.org, savethegarden.org, we have a ticker of both how much money we've raised as well as how many signatures we've accomplished, and we're 94% complete with our mission.
And that's 94% towards the 7,000 you said?
Yeah, we were wanting to raise $75,000. We've raised $70,000 to date, and we wanted to gather 7,000 signatures. We're right on the edge of that, and we'll accomplish that today.
I also want to say here, thank you for the call, Mike. Hey, if anybody from the church, I don't think is going to call in, but members, anybody who's a supporter of Scientology, please give us a call here, 813-239-9663. On a parallel track, there's also, we talk about, say, the Garden Avenue here, South Garden Avenue, but there's also a proposed, this $50 million entertainment complex being developed in downtown by a group called the Cleveland Street Alliance, which is a company composed of the Church of Scientology. This is new. You guys were fighting against transferring South Garden Avenue, but now there's an upcoming vote on September 14th, a couple weeks away, regarding the church seeking portions of Laura and Grove Streets, as well as an alleyway and a city-owned parcel. That city-owned parcel has an appraised value of $875,000. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, September 17th is actually going to be the vote. September 14th should have been the work session, which is where you discuss it publicly. But they've actually shoved both the work session talking time and the vote on the same day, which is super sus.
And that's where we saw the Times reported about this, right? We did Tashira, believes going to be there on the 14th.
Yeah, so she was saying, hey, give me the courtesy to actually delay it. We've done that for so many other past decisions. But this is what has not been reported on, and I'm so appreciative of you for giving us a chance to talk about it. Not just Garden Avenue, but 3 other pieces of property, which are streets, right-of-ways in downtown, are going to be given to the Church of Scientology, 4 total, by David Albritton, Mike Menino, and David Albritton's son-in-law, Ryan Cotton. So those 3 are giving our land away. This is why our charter amendment is to make voter approval required. And the fact that we've got over 7,000 signatures, which are valid on a charter amendment right now in real time, makes their choice profoundly inappropriate, knowing in just a few months' time, the City Council of Clearwater will never be able to give away and vacate streets like this in the future. It's like they're working with Scientology to squeeze in these last street vacations before the city finally holds the city accountable.
Let's go back to the phones. David is calling in about Scientology. Good morning, David. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Do we have that? David, go ahead.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, if folks haven't seen it yet, the Leah Remini show, which kind of exposes Scientology and had Mike Rinder, and a lot of that show was set in Clearwater, of course, the documentary parts of it. Well, it's all documentary, but it's worth watching because it just really shows how crappy Scientology is, and it talks about fair play, which they deny, but there's too much evidence about how crappy they are. So, and I really admire this guy for really putting up the fight, and I'm sorry about the attacks that he has to go through, but that's just the way they do their thing. It's really awful.
Hey, David, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate that. Well, I would say this, and certainly, YouTube is a wonderful thing. You can find a lot out there, and the internet is as well. A lot of this has changed in terms of the reporting about the church over the over the years or decades. I mean, there's been more. Lawrence Wright had a big book, and also there was the reporter. I actually worked with her a little bit when I was at Creative Oathing from Rolling Stone, who wrote a big book exposing the church in the last decade or so, the last couple of decades. So we've had more reporting, and actually some people would say the internet itself kind of like screwed up the game plan for the church because it kind of revealed what people would pay through auditing to find out what, reaching Xanu, I guess is that?
Xenu.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't get that right. But again, I respect any Scientologist calling us right now, anybody in the Clearwater area who wants to speak up for what's going on there. Love
Brooks,
to hear
let me
from
ask you about this race for seat 5 on Clearwater City Council. It's coming down to Sam Wilson and Mark Bunker. Now that there is a runoff, have you been able to engage? Obviously, you've probably engaged with Bunker, but with Sam Wilson, because he seems to be a little bit more receptive to the idea.
I think 25 years old, I would say, hey, give some time for this guy's brain to develop. I mean, he's young, So Jill and I, my wife and I, we just feel bad for him. If he was our son, we'd be like, bro, don't get into this town. This is a small town with major problems, and you don't want to be involved. He comes from a good stock, obviously. He's got Luna behind him. He's got the whole GOP and Republican, group. But Scientologists are campaigning hard for him. And that would not matter anywhere else in the country except Clearwater. Scientologists hate Mark Bunker. And so the general rule is whoever Scientology hates, that's who you want to vote for. They hated Bianca Latvala.
Yeah, let's mention that for a moment. So she
didn't prevail.
That's right. That was a seat 4 race between Bianca Latvala and Jared Leone. Now, what you did, Brooks, you yourself did this thorough reporting, and the Tampa Bay Times ultimately did a story on this. I actually was considering writing a story for the Phoenix about this, and that was that, okay, so Clearwater Strong was a PAC that people were getting mailers on in the Clearwater area that were supportive of Jared Leone, who recently was elected. Congratulations, Jared, over Bianca. And I didn't see any of the mailers themselves. I don't know if they were critical of Bianca or just praised Jared. But anyway, you looked into trying to figure the money trail here about who was supporting Clearwater Strong. And it was quite an extensive trail. What was it? 7 different PACs, or at least going all the way through to Miami, where prominent members of the Church of Scientology had written checks, and some big checks in some cases, to political committees in Miami that were funneled to other PACs in Miami, then sent to other PACs before it's made its way over to Clearwater Strong. So, what put it in your head as a kind of an investigative reporter there, and how you went about all that?
Well, I was just wondering, why am I getting postcards in the mail that are promoting Jared Leone? I know he's only raised $10,000. That wouldn't even cover the huge postcard effort that he did. So who is this? And then who is this Clearwater Strong PAC? So I start to dig because they're blasting Bianca. I know Bianca. They're saying lies about Bianca. Bianca's like a legit a public servant. Chris has a great track record, her husband. I mean, this is a phenomenal family that they come from. So I found out, sure enough, you got to go 7 PACs deep to finally see a bunch of Scientologists, including Minkoff, who was mentioned earlier as the doctor who treated Lisa McPherson, as well as others who gave $110,000 to Engaged Florida, that went through 3 other PACs that were all chaired by the same individual, that were ultimately funneled to Clearwater Strong, which only had one guy they were promoting, and that was a Miami PAC spending $70,000 on promoting Jared Leone. I asked Jared about this. What is this? He played ignorant. And apparently that was a brilliant thing that he did, because he could basically play both sides. But I think that lacked a character, in my opinion. He should have come out and said, yes, Scientology is promoting me. I don't know why. I don't want their money. I don't know what they're doing. But yes, I'm in every mailbox in the city. That's what you should do. That should be full of integrity. But unfortunately, Bianca lost by 2,000 votes. And of course, we know Scientology has at least 3,500 that they casted for Leone.
And again, that race, right, between Sam Wilson and Mark Bunker taking place in November. Let's go now to another phone call. We've got Stephen from St. Petersburg. Good morning, Stephen.
Yeah, I was listening to the show on Scientology. And, if you go back 250 years, when the revolution happened, and they said, what? They said to all the different denominations, we'll make you tax exempt, which is unbiblical, by the way. If you follow the revolution, you support us, okay? And, you have to take your hat off to the Scientologists. Is it witchcraft? Yes. Is it evil? Yes. But they're pulling in a ton of cash, tax-free, just like in the prosperity movement, Joel Osteen's of the world, and it's all have a different picture. But it's the same scam that the U.S. government lets religious organizations be tax exempt, which they shouldn't. And the bottom line, all these guys that started these movements are warlocks. They present themselves that they're beautiful and they're smart and they're intelligent and they're godly and all this stuff. But at the same time, they're pulling in money and deceiving people, and they're tax exempt. So Scientology, it would take a Florida government to get this cult out of the state of Florida. But you can't do it because the laws are protected to protect cults in the United States of America, which, by the way, there's over 3,000 cults operating in the U.S.
I did not know that. That's good information, Stephen. Appreciate that.
No, but I'm just saying, Scientology is the last thing I wanted to say.
Yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard was a religious warlock. It's witchcraft, in essence, Scientology. And they talk you into giving you their money. They're tax-free, and you're broke. And that's what happened.
Thank you for the phone call. Appreciate that. Going back to your advocacy here on this issue, I want to say Ryan, I think it was Ryan Cotton, council member Ryan Cotton, he has labeled, again, Save the Garden, your group, Brooks, he's labeled your group, quote, a modern-day crusade against a religious organization more than an effort to reflect Christ in our community. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, I mean, considering that a lot of our folks are not Christian, right? They're not Republican. We have a mixture of every type of citizen in Clearwater. In fact, I would say this is the most unifying movement in the history of Clearwater because it's actually brought us all together because we agree on one thing. We're against monopoly of our downtown. It's a tyranny. Our forefathers actually warned against this. It's not only the monopoly of knowledge, which would be like someone protecting the internet, but monopoly of property. Jefferson said, the time to guard against corruption and tyranny is before they have gotten a hold of us. It is better to keep the wolf out of the fold than to trust to drawing his teeth in talons after he shall have entered it. So the Scientologists have entered their talons into the city of Clearwater, and they forthrightly said they would with Project Normandy, saying this will be the first Clearwater city. We need to take those talons out. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing balance, preventing their ability to acquire more property, and creating diversity in downtown. We welcome them here, but Scientologists are a welcome member of our community. They are not the center of our community, and we're making sure they get that message loud and clear.
11:53 here on WMNF 88.5 FM. Mitch Perry with Ray Rowe talking about the Save the Garden campaign and this issue in Clearwater regarding the Church of Scientology and property there that is going back and forth between, or I should say that has already been given to the church. There might be more land, as Brooks Gibbs talked about a minute ago. Let's now go to Chris in Clearwater. Good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning. It looks like L. Ron Hubbard Hall is not going to be built. Unfortunately, Scientology spent so much on their very long-winded CGI animation that I think they're setting up their members for disappointment to blame the Save the Garden movement for taking, with a ballot initiative and having the streets taken, the Garden Avenue and other two streets taken away from them. They also, if you don't know, Scientology says that gayness is a disorder. I'm not sure if they want to transform them as well as the downtown Clearwater. And I also ask, can anyone name a single religion or religionist other than maybe Epicureans who would build or even coordinate the building of a theater and screen for the record books showing slave stream Hollywood flicks? I searched and I could find no such theater, big or small, so maybe Scientology will break two records, and I wonder if Clearwater has already set a record for number of closed storefronts in a city or county seat and subsequent drop in foot traffic to business since Scientology and Scientologists acting in concert moved in. And it seems that convenient at this point in history that both local and global tyranny, that Scientology would be a collaborator to purportedly build back better in the Hegelian dialectic of synthesis, antithesis, and thesis to come up with their pre-orchestrated solution. And, if there would be value in such a theater if it had something enriching to offer to the community.
Okay.
Brooks, how much can you tell
Thank
us
you about
about
that,
the
Chris.
Cleveland Street Alliance and its affiliation with Scientology and what it's trying to do in downtown Clearwater?
Cleveland Street Alliance is a work of the flag building, with the flag organization, which is Scientology. And it's basically the assemblage of all of their Cleveland Street properties into the future. They view themselves as Disney, someone who needs to acquire a lot of properties so that they can at some point assemble them and activate them. And so that's how they're pitching themselves. I would like to make note, and this is for David Albritton if he listens, Cleveland Street Alliance did not go full throttle, and the buildings were not fully renovated until Save the Garden entered the picture. That's when they started blowing tens of millions of dollars of improving and activating downtown. This is Exhibit A of why voter approval required for any street vacation or land acquisition that is public downtown is the exact type of pressure point we need to take an institution like Scientology to keep a positive reputation in the community. And the only way they're going to do that is if they keep their buildings open and active. So he's trying to shame us and belittle us and defeat us, this Albritton, Cotton, and Menino, when they don't realize that we are the answer to actually keeping downtown active. So Cleveland Street Alliance is really led by a guy by the name of Argami. His name is Moises Argami, and he's a 100 millionaire. And there's articles about him, how he, when he was 7 years old, would stay up till 3 a.m. to play Monopoly. He has successfully monopolized the entire street of Cleveland.
So, Brooks, I want to just wrap this up here. So, again, for you guys, so what's the date you're going to be submitting your petitions into the city of Clearwater?
At noon on September 16th, we will be submitting thousands of signatures from the people of Clearwater to get back Garden Avenue and put it to a special election so we could take it back.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah,
I mean, why does Clearwater matter so much to you? Like, why not just go somewhere else?
It's where I live. You know, it's where I want my grandkids to be. I got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. They go to St. Pete College. And Jill and I are tired of moving. We really love our house. And so we're like, you know what? The only way that we can make this attractive to our future generations is if we can bring some balance and make it awesome. And so that's why the county buildings are hopeful for us. We want to keep it out of the hands of Scientology. And we want downtown to be active. Among many reasons, it is our home.
All right. Brooks Gibbs, again, the campaign director with the group Save the Garden. Brooks, really thank you so much for coming in. Ray, we got a couple minutes left here.
They still haven't voted, by the way.
No, but they're talking to, I think, not the county attorney, but one of these other officials right now. I think every county commissioner, we're talking right now, folks, about the Hillsborough County Commission. Literally any minute now is going to vote on the Tampa Bay Rays baseball proposal. We're kind of watching it on video here. I believe every county commissioner's had their say where they can say what they're going to do.
It's like Wostel just wrapped up his comments.
But they haven't had their final vote yet because they're getting some more last minute information about from
probably some legal advice and things like that right now.
Yeah, but it's really going to come down the wire. And I do not know how this is going to go down. And by the way,
I don't think we're going to find out here before.
Well, not in the next minute and a half, but nevertheless, about what happens if this, I think it's a really question though, right? I mean, a couple weeks ago, it looked like the county commission, there was no problem there. It was all about the city council. Then Bill Carlson kind of works with Ken Babby and the Rays. He was that swing vote there. The city council did what they did yesterday.
4-3 vote yesterday to basically advance this thing.
Right. And so, again, the county commission on an MOU vote months ago voted 5-2. It wasn't close, that they were supportive of it. And only in the last couple of weeks have we heard some dissenting voices as the pressure mounts on this huge amount of government funding for a ballpark, one of the biggest expenditures in American history, I believe, for one local government to give.
You still need 3 people to flip on the BOCC. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Some of it feels surreal, right, Mitch? Like, we've been talking about the Rays in Tampa in the stadium. It feels like
literally since 2007 is when they first broached the idea they didn't want to live in St. Pete anymore. They were thinking about, or that they wanted to go to Al Lang Field. That was the very first discussion there. Okay, but
that's all the time we have. What a great Friday! Thank you all so much for supporting WMNF Tampa. Thank you for supporting this experiment in community-funded radio. On behalf of myself, Ray Roa, the editor-in-chief at Creative Loafing Tampa Bay, Mitch Perry, our co-host and co-founder of the show, senior writer at the Florida Phoenix, Joe Remo on the boards for us today, and of course Anthony Medor on the phone. Thank you to Michael Barfield from the Florida Trident for joining us at the top of the show, and to Brooks Gibbs from the Save the Garden in downtown Clearwater. If you want to listen to this show again or read more, WMNF.org is the website, and you can find a blog for that. Joellen Schilke is in Studio 1 with Art Neer. It's great to see her, and we'll see you in 7 days.